Morning. Oh, there. I have it back. Okay, I'm good. Thank you very much. Good morning, my dear friends. Thanks for joining me today. It's a beautiful Friday here in Metro Manila, and we will be talking about something interesting, something that I believe might allow our kids to learn a lot. No audio. Am I back? Yes. No audio. Yes, I turned it off because I was still reading the news, and when I click the broadcast button, it begins to broadcast, and anything that the sound that I make here on the studio will be heard by you. So it's a beautiful Friday. Look at the garden. It's nice and breezy and also bright out there. I hope you're all ready to learn and enjoy today's show. I'd like to say hi to Jenny Salvador. Hi, Jeng. Kuya Mel Chan, Ate Rohaifa, Kuya James, Lynette, Mover Hector, and of course the Tags Team Tagaro family from Ozamis City. Stick around, my dear friends. We have a packed show for you today. Good morning, Pam Gascon. Good morning, Kuya Jason Matias. Good morning, Tito LJ Beroy Espeleta. Good morning, everyone. Breakfast daw tayo. Let's begin with this good word. Humility of mind. But with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. Looking out for the interest of others. The key term there is to regard. It doesn't mean that they're really better than you. It doesn't mean that they're more important than you. You are as important on earth as they are, but you regard them. As far as you're concerned, you will regard them better than you. Look, I'll play a little bit of a trick today. Look, I have a special 2-cam today. So I will be trying this 2-cam setup. Trisha, excuse me. I have prepared a 2-cam setup for you. We're improving the studio. How does the 2-cam work, my dear Trisha and my dear friends? Does it work well for you? So I would switch from this camera over here to that camera over there. So I will be trying that today, and we'll see how that works, my dear friends. Okay? So what is in the news today? Let's check what's in the news before we talk about what I promised you in my FB post where I said we will be talking about how we can develop the reading habit for everyone. Let's check the news first. Let's check what's in the news. Okay, what's in the news today, my friends? Let's see if this works well. Oh, see that? Is that clearer? Okay, what date is today? August 27 update from the DOH. There are 3,942 confirmed cases of COVID from 98 out of 110 laboratories. In NCR alone, 1,584. I'm sorry. In Cavite, 147 cases. Laguna, 143. Negros Oriental, 140. In Batangas, 123. Asymptomatic cases, 6.6. Severe, 0.8. Critical, 1.2. Oh, that's a bit sad. Mild cases, 91.3. Okay, let's look at the other news items we have today for you. One of them is from the Philippine or the Manila Standard What's in the Manila Standard, my friends? The Manila Standard says Morales graft probe continues. Apparently, President Duterte already accepted the resignation of the former head of PhilHealth, General Morales. He had to resign because of the controversy. That's the real reason. Although they're saying he resigned because of his failing health. He has cancer, lymphoma, and he's undergoing treatment for it. This news article also tells us about how PhilHealth legal department failed to prosecute cases against erring employees and clients. Horrible revelation there. I will be talking about the details of that failing to prosecute in the next headline, because that headline talked about that in greater detail. Also in the headline of the Manila Standard, Holo back to normal but braces for terrorist attacks, says the mayor. Unfortunately, that province is so used to being under threat of terrorism that they have learned to cope with it. So they can go back to their normal lives. But yes, they know it could happen again. That's a sad thing. DOH lacks data to tie 3 Chinese to virus spread. Duterte plans to go live to debunk health rumors. Let's say hi to friends first. Oh, there's so many of you writing down. I would appreciate if you write down a hi or hello whenever you drop by, so I would know people continue to watch the show. And I would like to say hi to my dear Kuya Randy from Phnom Penh. Good morning, Kuya Randy Campos. Kuya Randy Campos is based in Phnom Penh. I would also love to say hi to Archie Vihar. Good morning also to Tito Gilbert Lazaro. Good morning also to Jason Matias from Cavite City. To Pam Gascon, good morning as well. Good morning, Pam. Also, good morning to my dear cousin Maria Charlo Ong. Thanks for saying hi. If you're here, please do say hi. Kuya Melchan, yes, helps a lot reduce eye strain. Editing technique too. What do you mean, Tito Mel? Is it the 2-cam setup we have? Do you like the 2-cam setup? Okay, let's check other news items first. Good morning to my dear chap Buta sa pagpakabana. Budik is based in the US with his family. Keep safe, chap. Amping pirmi. I was part of this academic group in college where we called one another chap. You're my chap. You're my friend. So it's the Student League for Academic Advancement and Progress. So it was like a geeky, dorky group of people who love to study and achieve things. So it was not a fraternity. It was just an org of people who love to put up or organize quiz shows and events for academic advancement. So as part of that group, and Butahir, or Budik as we used to call him, was part of that group. Budik was also a thespian and musician and smart kid from Butuan City, my Buntag Budik. Also, good morning to Reynaldo Candelaria de la Cruz. Also to Sarah Jean Apostol. Good morning, Sarah Jean. Okay, let's proceed with other news items. Ano ba tayong next natin? Okay, this is interesting. US blacklists China firms for SCS work. What does SCS work? The United States State Department apparently blacklisted the companies involved in building those structures in the South China Sea or in the West Philippine Sea. Yung lahat ng contractor, construction company, suppliers of materials for the building of those islands in those areas have been blacklisted by the State Department, which is good. So the US is using not just its military capability but also its economic strength and influence economically to pressure China to stop what they're doing in the South China Sea or in the West Philippine Sea. Napakahalaga po yun na yung business interest should not yield to the influence of the Chinese Communist Party. That's what the US State Department is saying. Pati yung HSBC, tinitira ng Amerika because they could somehow serve the interest of the Communist Party if the world doesn't really slap their wrists and tell them, wag ganun. Wag ganun. You don't promote the political interest of a country through the business transactions you enter around the world. May ganong ugali itong Chinese Communist Party. That's why the US, not just the US, but the other countries are pushing back. In the same article, it also talks about how the China has actually conducted military drills in the area. And the US and their allies also did a freedom of navigation exercise there. They sailed across those territories claimed by China. And in fact, the Philippines flew a plane over those claimed territories. So there's still a continuing conflict there because of the claims of China. The 9-dash line claim of China. Ito yung claim ng China that practically claims the entire South China Sea, violating all claims of the other countries from the Southeast Asian region. Okay, Ma'am Trisha says I should look at the camera. Okay, good morning, Jen Saavedra, Catalunya. Good morning also to Hiner Berinia. Those are the news from the Philippine Star. QC launches for COVID patients. That's good. And then regional trade pact on track for November, signing DTI. Those are some of the headlines, my friends, from the Philippine Star. Okay, let's talk about, last but definitely not the least, only few PhilHealth cases reached the court. Alam nyo, ito nakakatawa. When asked this Vice President Del Rosario, who apparently heads the legal department, why out of the 1,700 cases of false claims, of overcharging, of kung ano-ano na lang sinacharge sa PhilHealth at kumikita yung mga ospital, mga doktor, hindi lamang yung mga ospital at mga doktor, pati yung mga empleyado ng PhilHealth, 50 lang ang na-file. At yung active cases ngayon, 11 out of 1,700. Pero hindi yun yung nakakatawa. Hindi yun yung nakakatawa. Ang nakakatawa doon is the reason that they gave. Ang sabi nila, ang sabi nila, ang reason daw why they did not pursue cases is thereafter settlement. Okay, given. Okay, settlement. Pero if the people involved are your own employees or people that you know have stole, one case in fact involves 2.1 billion pesos and it involves an employee of PhilHealth. Imagine the reason that they gave for not filing a case is esprit de corps. They want daw to keep esprit de corps. They want to keep loyalty and friendships and good relationships and feeling of being loved and cared for within PhilHealth. Nagnakaw ka, hindi ka kakasuhan dahil gusto nilang hindi sumama ang loob mo. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine that? Ayaw nilang kasuhan at hindi nila pinursu dahil daw esprit de corps? Makakasira daw sa moral ng mga tao ng PhilHealth. What moral are you talking about? This company, this government institution is gonna go bankrupt. It's gonna go bankrupt because of the billions of pesos stolen from that agency of government. And yet they say esprit de corps. No esprit de corps, my friends, when that company closes down because you dried up its coffers. Everyone stole from it. Not everyone, but the ones who are involved. So I really hope they can put a stop to it. Talaga, Kuya Mel, sad for our country today. Talagang garapalan. Garapal yung na-uncover about PhilHealth. Talaga, Tito Mel. And it has been going on for ages. Alam yan, panahon pa yan ng napakaraming presidente. Tuloy-tuloy, akala natin matitigil ngayon. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin. So Duterte, Digong, palihog lang sir. Palihog lang in town sir. Please put a stop to this. If you could put a stop to this, the country will be very, very thankful to you. Wanting to run, Miss Trish, but I'm so pregnant. Arvin and the others are back to running. Hello, She. Arvin is the top triathlete of Clark. Of course, say hi to everyone there, She. Good morning, She. Oh. Esprit de corps. Senator says, apply terror law to holoblasts. Yes. Yes. That's why that law was created. Specifically for situations like the one that just happened in Holo. That should have been prevented. You know what's unfortunate? I read this yesterday. That could have been prevented now if not for that really, really sad incident. Remember a couple of weeks ago, there was a news where the military had a shootout with the police in Holo and 4 military men died because the policemen killed them. I'm not sure if it was really a shootout. The police says it is. The military says they were killed. There was a rub out. They were killed by the police, fellow government security personnel. The sad thing is this. Apparently, those 4 military men were on these terrorist cases. They were tracking terrorists in Holo. They were on these people. And because they died, we lost the information that they could have provided for this, to prevent this problem. Kita niyo yan? So one corruption leads to another, and one problem escalates another. And that's why we really need righteousness, integrity, and respect for law in all levels of government, in PhilHealth, in the military, in the police. So it's not just the work of the president. It's really our work to form a generation of Filipinos that will love this country and respect the law and fellow citizens. So those are the sad cases. Okay, in other countries, Hurricane Laura batters the Gulf Coast. And then, okay, ERC slaps 19 million fine on Meralco. Okay, those are the headlines, or those are the ones that appear on the front page of the Philippine Daily Inquirer. I will be right back for What's Interesting. What's interesting, my dear friends? Okay, let's talk about what's interesting. I moved to my other camera to talk about what's interesting. How do you find this? You'll see a big face, my big face. You will see this today because I will be talking here, talk to you about what's interesting. I would love to share with you my thoughts on how we can develop a love for reading. So if do we have kids watching today who might want to develop a love for reading? If you want to further develop your love for reading, please share this to your friends on your Facebook page and invite your kids to watch this because Kuya Mark will now share his thoughts on how do we develop the love for reading. If you are young, this might be good for you. If you've been struggling, meaning you're already mature and you're of age, but you can't seem to develop the love for reading, you have been doing it all your life, you know it's going to help you, you know reading is absolutely important for professional growth, and many of the world's most successful people are avid readers, are bookworms as they call them. So how do you develop this love for reading so that you could accumulate knowledge? Because they say you become smarter when you read and when you listen. You don't become smart when you keep talking. So because talking, you release information, but I will share with you though a trick that makes you develop reading through talking. That I will explain to you a little later. So how do you develop reading even when you're already of age? Because you know it is essential for your professional growth. You know it is absolutely beneficial for you to read more. So today I will be sharing with you 5 things that I believe will help us develop the love for reading. Okay, so what's the first thing that I wish to share with you? Number 1, if you want to develop the love for reading, you want to start light. You want to start with light reading materials. Start with light reading. When I was young, when my parents, Daddy Nemuel in particular, encouraged me to read, he bought me the Disney Encyclopedia. Anyone here read that Disney Encyclopedia? It's a set of encyclopedia, if I'm not mistaken, sold by Reader's Digest before. It was a pack sold at Reader's Digest, and because my parents also subscribed to Reader's Digest, they were able to access this set of books. If I'm not mistaken, there were about 30 volumes excuse me, of that book, of that Reader's Digest Encyclopedia Disney edition. So there's Pluto and Mickey Mouse and others who were in that read. So I read that when I was growing up. I remember reading that since I was really, really young. So I started with Disney, and so should the kids. You should not force them to read something really heavy. If you're of age and you want to develop reading, wag po tayong mahiya na magsimula sa mga simple things. Read Harry Potter. Read Narnia. Read, if you want to even catch up on things, you can read Hardy Boys. There's no shame in reading those teenage books, because when I started reading, it started with encyclopedia, yung Disney, and then with nursery rhymes, a ton of nursery rhymes, and then I read Hardy Boys, and then on to novels. So if you want to develop the love for reading, wag po tayong mahihiya. Go to a bookstore, go to the story section, don't go to the business section, don't go to the self-help section, go to a lighter section. Start light. So for kids, start them light. So when you go to a bookstore and you bring your kids there, allow them to choose. Don't choose for them. Don't say, wag yan anak, wag yan anak. If the kid likes it, okay. Most kids, when they start reading or they start visiting the bookstore, they would be attracted by the cover. They would be attracted by the color. Now, some books look really nice and some books can be so attractive, but they would also be expensive. But if your kid is young and you're just planting the seeds for the love of reading in the heart of your kid, just invest on those things. Because if the kid picks up a book and he says, "Oh, I like this book," and says, "Wag yan anak, kasi kwan yan, mahal yan," ganon. So if you're negative about those early experiences with books, the kids, those will be implanted in their brains and they will have a negative experience about books. Kasi kung yun talaga yung gusto niya, the first few times bigay mo. And then after he read it, then you can move him along. So start with light books and start with what you like. Go with what you like, not what you need. Go with what you like, not what you need. So if you like, then ask yourself, if you're old and you need to develop the love for reading, do I like action? Do I like adventure? Do I like fantasy? What do I like? But if you don't like anything yet because you haven't really started reading yet, you could maybe ask yourself, what movies do I watch? So for example, itong recent, merong Little Women, di ba? Or meron kang Pirates of the Caribbean before, or meron kang mga Marvel before. In fact, you can even start with comics. As long as you develop the habit of picking up something and flipping through pages. Yes, go start with comics if you have to. So if you have no particular interest yet, go to other things that you enjoy. Okay, you want K-drama, you enjoy K-drama, then go to a bookstore and look for a story that has something to do with K-drama. If you like, for example, Marvel, go to a Marvel section. Ganun lang. Allow the likes to drive you. Okay, I owe my love for reading to my parents. Yes, Kuya Mel, it's all about setting the environment and the culture of reading. The parents really play a huge role. I know Tito Vince. Good morning, Tito Vince Medina. Tito Vince Medina also loved to read, and Tito Vince loved to read a lot of action and fantasy and fiction novels, and he was able to pass that on to his daughter Ryan. Ryan loves to read a lot. Vince is married to my sister Sui. Sis Sui reads sometimes but is not really a huge reader. So, but Ryan is a much better reader than Sui and even Vince. But Vince was able to do a great job at developing that love for reading in Ryan. So it's all about develop the like, not the need. Okay, but if you have a job to do, kaya tayo nagsa-struggle. So for example, your company assigned you a particular reading material or you have a project where that requires you to read. Mapipilitan po tayong magbasa ng what we need to read. Okay din yung what we need to read. Pero if you want to develop a love for reading, it should be driven by what excites you. It should be driven by what you like. I went to college and I took up literature. I was an English major, and there are many genres that you read when you're an English major. You read poems, you read novels, you read short stories, you read plays, and many other forms of literature. So that was my major. But because I was so busy doing so many things in college, and I wanted to sustain my love for reading, and I just did not have so much time to really flip through thick novels. I did not read so many novels when I was in college. In fact, because I was a varsity debater, I was an athlete, so I just did not have so much time to enjoy reading, although I enjoyed reading in high school and in elementary. So in college, what kept me loving reading, you know what? Were short stories. I love short stories. Short stories are, as compared to a novel. A novel would be multi-character, multi-scene. Okay, this is a very simple distinction between short stories and novels. Novels are multi-character and multi-scene. A short story is usually one or very few characters, and usually one location, one scene. So it's like putting a spotlight on a particular character and a particular scene. So if it's a particular character and a particular scene, you would really appreciate the skill of the writer in building something to a certain level of power of that connects with the reader, even with the limitations of the short story format. So yung short story is also something that you might enjoy reading. Kung hindi po talaga tayo sanay pa sa nobela, wag po tayong pumunta agad dun sa novel. Subukan po nating mag-research ng short story. Type ka lang sa maraming mga writer ng short story na magagaling. Sila Ernest Hemingway had very, 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 very nice short stories. Sila John Steinbeck, napakagaganda ng kanilang mga short stories. So kung gusto mong matuto din magkwento or magsulat din ng mga kwento, I would encourage you to go read short stories. So start with what you like, not what you need. But for kids, I would suggest that you bring them to a bookstore and just allow them to choose. Okay, si Danny likes reading also, but I'm really trying to push them to read more. Itong unang nagustuhan ni Danny na mga books, nagsimula siya dun sa, ano nga yung fairy fair na bigay ni Ate Ann? Okay. Si Tita Ann Ardina, she's a writer. She's an author. Si Ann Ardina was or is Spring's ninang. And Ninang Ann gave Spring a book entitled, excuse me, I am a bit gassy today. I think it's because of the coffee or what? Is there something that I ate? Si Tita Ann Ardina gave Spring a book entitled Fancy Nancy. It's a book about a girl who loved fancy clothes and fancy things. And Spring liked that, but it was Danny who really adored Fancy Nancy. So when kids find something that they really like, then it will lead them into that nice journey. And as soon as they have a wonderful experience with the book, it's not going to be hard for them to have better experience with it. That's why Spring and Danny have already read the Harry Potter series. They've also read a lot of the Stranger Things books, because also thanks to Tito Vince for lending them many of those books. So pag maganda na yung experience nila, magtutuloy-tuloy na yon. Okay? Next. Si Migo likes Dogman, and so I'll explain that when I reach number 5. Okay. I'll explain that when I reach number 5. Next one is this. The next suggestion for if you want to love reading is this. Lalo na ngayon, this has something to do with reading online. Ito, many of us read from the phone, and I read a lot from my phone. I treat my phone as a book, okay? Although Facebook is not a book, it leads you to a lot of reading materials that are very, very good. I'll give you an example. Si Tita Trixie Angeles. Trixie is a lawyer and a host, a TV host. Si Trixie Cruz Angeles, she was the one who started posting about Ancient Origins. Ancient Origins is a website that talks about archaeology in relation to history. So, meron kang history material lang. But what I love about Ancient Origins is it talks about archaeology as relates to history, meaning there's proof to that historical event because there are archaeological finds around those events. So si Trixie posted about Ancient Origins, and when I click Ancient Origins from the Facebook post of Trixie, it led me to so many nice things. So many nice things of discovering. Ngayon, I'm in a lot of reading about the Vikings because they're beginning to discover a lot of Viking artifacts in the UK, in many parts of Europe. So who are these Vikings and the other tribes that fought with the Vikings, that resisted the Vikings? Were the Vikings really, were they just rampaging around Europe, destroying communities? Or were they also good for something? Alam mo yon, were they good businessmen? And what sort of businesses did they do, and how did it eventually end? So those things were driven, or I was led to those because of a Facebook post. So the next point that I want to share with you is this. If you want to use this to continue to sustain your love for reading habit, I would suggest that you read on impulse. Allow your impulse to drive you. Allow your impulse to push you to read. So for example, I'm building this my studio, right? And then Tito Marvin Querido. Marvin Querido is a musical arranger, musical director, musician. He is also building his studio. And Tito Marvin Querido started posting about microphones, amazing microphones, expensive microphones. And because I'm interested in those things, I click on and I read the name of the microphone. I immediately, I'm interested in that. I immediately Google that. So meaning Facebook, and then you find something interesting. For example, itong Kumu. Ano ba itong Kumu? Kumu. Everyone's on Kumu. And then I immediately go to Google. So from Facebook to Google. What is Kumu? And then it leads you to a world that talks about Kumu. And from Kumu, you read about how that compares to other social media platforms. How does that compare to other streaming platforms? So ibig sabihin, it drives you if you're acting out of impulse. Now, where do I start that? Here, Facebook. So what I do is I use Facebook as a trigger for reading. For example, marami ako na ito, okay, Don Papa Rum. Why do I keep seeing Don Papa Rum? Apparently, Don Papa Rum is a top tier rum made from Negros, Philippines, that a lot of the baristas all over the world are adoring. So I read because I keep seeing Don Papa Rum. What is this? Your curiosity, and then you click it, and then you go to Google, and then you read about the history of rum making in Negros. So that's how you turn your seemingly waste of time flipping through Facebook into something that develops your reading habit. So this is not a social media platform. It's not just a social media platform for me. It's really a reading trigger. So ganyan siya. Almawa, Yan, si Tito Marlon Santos, for example. Tito Marlon Santos is at Arashiyama Bamboo Forest. Oh, that's interesting. There's Arashiyama Bamboo Forest in Japan. And he's bringing his bike with him. Maganda pala magbike doon. Click Arashiyama Bamboo Forest. Why? Because you're reading out of impulse. And then when you visit that site and you didn't find anything significant or important, then you go back. So ganun lang po ang ating ginagawa para po yung impulse mo keeps growing and your interest keeps also expanding. So yun po yung aking ginagawa. Use this as a trigger to read, not to waste your time. So if my kids see me reading, hindi siya actually useless time. Every time I read on Facebook, it leads me to other things. Okay, for example, Arcely Cabanilla is feeling amused. We have early morning tweets because of these. No wonder why locals don't contract bird flu. Okay. No wonder why locals don't contract bird flu. Okay. Why? You know why? She posted about chili. Okay. Chili. She posted about this. So okay. And then if you read that, it leads you to chili. And then it also reminds me of my friend who did a business on chili, Paulo Bernaldo. And then you go read about so many kinds of chili and the hottest chili, and apparently there's one chili that could kill you because of the level of spice, of chilliness. In fact, it can stop the heart from beating. And so it adds information to your head because you read on and on and on. Okay? So read on impulse. Number 4, if you want to develop your reading, it has to be useful. Because when you read and you have no use for it, you will not keep reading. So what do you do with what you read? You share. Share what you read. Because when you are able to share what you read and people, wow, that's really nice. Thank you very much. When you share what you read, then your reading becomes something that's useful for more people, not just you. Then you have a higher purpose for reading. If you do that, you will explore more so you can share more. Explore to share. Read to share. Read to help others. Read to educate others. That way, reading becomes a form of service for your friends and your family. Okay? I play a lot of trivia games. Tito Mark, among nieces and nephews, I always love trivia games. I also play a lot of trivia games in the trainings that I do. Why do I play trivia games? Because I need something as a platform for the things that I read. Okay? And if I ask something during a trivia game, and then my kids say, we don't think you know the answer to that. And then we all Google together. And then we read up on that particular thing. Okay? Last but definitely not the least. Now, who is this? Thanks, attorney. It's a Chinese, is that a Chinese name or a Japanese name? Who are you, my dear friend? Thanks for dropping by. Now, last but definitely not the least. How do you develop reading? You develop a habit or you develop streaks, okay? Meron kang dalawang klaseng tao na nagbabasa. Those who read because it's really their habit. It could be either phone reading, that they're really using their phone to read. It could be regular book reading where they really have time, books on their bedside. They have a designated time, or whenever they're waiting, they read. I love those kinds of people. I'm not so much of a daily reader. I don't have a book all the time on me like a novel. What I am is what you call a streak reader. Okay, what is a streak reader? I'll give you an example. So for example, a streak reader is someone who enters the life of, for example, an author. So I'm a streak reader because when I discovered John Cotter and I like him very much, what I do is I'll read everything that I could find on him or by him. So I read all books that I could read from John Cotter. So I've read most of John Cotter's books. I've read almost all, I think all of Malcolm Gladwell's books. I've read all of C.S. Lewis's books. So ganun po ako, I am a streak reader. Okay. What else have I read recently? My recent streak is by a Japanese author, but Japanese-British author. So he has 5 books. So I've read all 5 of his books. So ganun po akong klaseng reader because I am impulse-driven. I'm interest-driven. So when I like something, I follow through on that and then it ends. And then I stop for a while and then I look for the next streak. Okay? So depende po sa iyong klase. Pwede kang habit reader talaga. And I know many habit readers. Percy Ababa, my friend, is a habit reader. Si Junver Arcana is also reading out of habit or also out of great diligence. I'm not that kind of reader, but I read in streaks. So if I find something interesting about thinking or analysis, I read as much that I could read on that particular subject. So I would encourage you to do one or the other or both. Better if you could do both. So what are my tips for today, my friends? Start with light reading. Nothing. And wag po tayo mahihiya. If you're not yet an avid reader, start with even Marvel, start with comics, start with Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, start with Harry Potter, start with those things. Go for what you like, not just what you need. But of course, if you need to read something, please comply. Number 3, read on impulse. I am particularly talking about the impulse that you might get if you're on Facebook. So use Facebook as a reading trigger and not just a waste of your time because you're just looking at the lives of others. So if Pugad Baboy, Kuya JV Honored. If you have to read Pugad Baboy, go ahead and read Pugad Baboy because that's really, really nice. I'm seeing a lot of posts about spice today. Okay, there's a post about plants and plantitas and plantitos. So you could also read up on those. Okay, number 4, share what you read. That's why I keep posting. I share the things that I have here. This is one of the reasons why we developed this platform. And finally, develop a habit. Either it's a daily thing that you really pick up a book or it's a streak reading. So what have I developed? I developed a habit of reading through my phone, letting Facebook and the things I see there lead me to a lot of reading materials. But I also, when I'm talking about books, I develop streaks. I develop a series. So there was a time that I was reading just on Genghis Khan. So I read so many things about Genghis Khan. There was a time I was on a streak about Philippine prehistory. So I read so many things on Philippine prehistory. Ito pala, recent streak. What's my recent streak? I read a lot about the geopolitics in the Korean Peninsula and Japan because, as you know, I have been convinced by Trisha to watch K-dramas. And we watched this K-drama entitled Mr. Sunshine, which talked about the late 1800s, early 1900s story of how the Japanese Empire conquered and colonized Korea. And then there was a talk about Manchuria. Where is Manchuria really? How did that disappear? There is no more Manchuria. It's now China. Actually, it's now a province of China. And so I read on that as a streak because I'm driven by something that interests me. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Yes, Lynette. Danny also has a collection of that. And Migo also has a collection of that. At first, I resisted that because I didn't like the title. When Spring picked that up before, I made a mistake of telling her not to read it because I didn't like the title, The Wimpy Kid. But when I agreed for Danny to read it, it became actually an issue. Naging issue yan. Parang, Dad, why did you let Danny read that Wimpy Kid when you said no to me before? So, yan. Ayn Rand, ka-heavy. Ayn Rand is also wonderful. If you're not in the mood for Ayn Rand, don't go there. There are light books and heavy books, but there's always a season for those things. So it's nice to keep several books opened on your bedside if you feel like it. So that's whatever drives you to pick up a book is always good. Yes. Okay. Do you have questions, my friends, coming from kids and everyone else? Okay. Share these tips to your kids. And for parents, again, don't force them. Allow them to just, okay. There was also a time, Kuya James, that I was on a Vampire Chronicles series. So I read a lot about vampires. And then, of course, there was the series on John Grisham. And then there was Robert Ludlum series. So it's always a streak for me. So it could be a Robert Ludlum streak. It could be so depende. Archie and Veronica. Alam mo, Trisha, I never really enjoyed so much Archie and Veronica because I found Archie to be... alam nyo to. I am not a fan of weak main characters, even in the Korean dramas. Whenever I find, I don't know if I'm trying to deny that I can be weak or I'm trying to make myself strong, but I don't like weak main characters. That's why I did not develop a love for Archie. I did not develop a love for Archie. Yun siya yung kwento nun. That's why I was more of a Hardy Boys kind of person. Okay? I started with Bato Balani. Now I'm on a streak on car modifications. Yes, JV, I saw your post about, you know what? You actually made me read about Beatles. And yung, I love the, JV Onod posted about a top down. Was it a top down, or they removed the top of the beetle and it's a black beetle? It's so beautiful. It made me think of actually having someone make me one. Having someone make me one. Sydney Sheldon, I hindi ko masyado na enjoy si Sydney Sheldon. Because Sydney Sheldon happened during the period that when people around me were reading Sheldons, I was reading a lot of Grisham and Ludlum. Those were the times in the 90s where it was all about Sheldon, Grisham, and Ludlum, right? So those three major series novels came at that time. So instead of going towards the Sheldon series, I was more of the Grisham and the Ludlum series. Okay, so Trisha loves lawyer novels. She is a huge Grisham fan. Dan Brown. I've read all of Dan Brown's books. So I was also on a Dan Brown streak. I've read all of his material, all of his books. So that's what I do. It's a streak. It's a streak. Okay? Thank you very much, my friends. What's interesting today? What's in trending? So those are the tips. What's trending, Trisha? What's trending today ay yung mga plantitos and plantitas. I know that many of you are enjoying your planting career. And look, we have a garden here, and that's something that I and Trisha enjoy. But I appreciate how friends are developing their planting skills, whether in their own condominiums or really planting in farms. That's something that we all need as a country, and I wish that we could all continue that it's not just a fad, hindi lang siya uso ngayon. I hope that it really develops the culture of planting in the Philippines. In Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and even Hong Kong, they really have a culture of planting trees. Before I graduated from college, we were required to plant trees in MSU, in State University. So now I know that they will require graduates to plant trees. But with all of these plantitos and plantitas, from orchids to those ornamental plants, I love those. I love those. We're not very good at planting. I have attempted to plant herbs many, many times. They don't survive with us. So I need to learn from the plantitos and the plantitas. I hope that you continue to develop the planting habit. That's very good for our country, very good for our home. So that's what's trending today. And I would like to end with this nice word for everyone, my friends. So I would like to end with this nice word for us. We talked about reading, and not just reading. I also read the Bible. So I would like to share with you this word. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. I believe that it's important for us to read our faith books, because our faith books will develop our character. The books that you read might develop your knowledge, might develop your skills, might make you a better professional. But I would encourage you also to read your Bible, to read religious material, because if you do so and you meditate on it day and night, you will be careful to do everything written in it, and you will be prosperous and successful. So that's our show for today, my friends. What is today? Today is August 28th. It's already 9:07. Have a great weekend ahead. It's a long weekend. Spend time with your family. Try to read something together. I hope I find my streak soon. I wish to find a new book or interest that will allow me to go on a streak. A streak is so good. Cecilia Labustro says, She read Mills and Boons when I was in high school. I know many women read Mills and Boons when I was in high school. You know what boys did to those Mills and Boons books? They would ask the girls for that particular chapter. You know what I mean. If it developed your love for reading, yes, but the Mills and Boons I would not recommend for my kids or the kids who are still young because they're a little bit R-rated. But if it did develop your reading, then that's wonderful. What I would encourage you to read, my friends, is something you like, something that builds your character, something that builds your family, something that builds your ability to become a better person and professional. Thanks for joining me today. I had so much fun with you. I'll see you all again Monday. Keep reading, keep growing, keep learning, keep safe. God bless.